and the links. And now I am pleased to introduce you to Abe Eshkenazi, CEO of the Association for Supply Chain Management. Welcome, Abe.
See my screen right now, and thanks, Sherry, for putting this together, and more importantly, thanks for everybody taking time today to join the webinar here. This is a difficult time for everybody, individuals and businesses alike. Relative to association work, this is really the time for associations to demonstrate our value to organizations, not only communities, but the general public at large. I think there's a huge gap relative to information availability and, more importantly, accuracy of information, not only to our members, but to the general public at large. We're going to share with you some of the perspectives that we learned from the 2008 recession, specifically some of the actions that we're taking. It's important to note that while we had some plans in place, a lot of the responses that we made during that time period was from lessons learned as we were implementing. So don't feel that if you haven't planned accordingly and some of the information that we're sharing with you today is new to you, that you can't implement it. There are actions and steps that you can take today that can make a difference in terms of how you are responding and how the members respond to you, but more importantly, how you come out of this on the back end. So let's get into some of the learnings that we've had here. A little bit of background for the organization. I joined the organization in '06, and you can rightfully describe it as a turnaround for the organization. For about 10 years straight, they had been losing about $1 million a year. Their membership had decreased over a period of 6 years from 2000 to 2006, from 72,000 down to about 40,000 members. And we had, in a lot of ways, lost our true north as an organization. So it really did challenge the opportunity to sustain this organization for the future. So in 2006, 2007, as we were trying to right-size the organization and respond to the market opportunities, we saw significant opportunities, not only internally, but externally as well. But it was going to take a significant investment for us to transform the organization back into a much more responsive, relevant player within the supply chain industry. We had lost a lot of the leadership opportunities over the past 10 to 15 years of the organization. And so a lot of the efforts that you see here in terms of the transformation were really the keys to our success. And the decision to move the organization was as much about financial as it was about resetting really the tone for the organization. So in 2007, a decision was made by the board to move the company from DC to Chicago, obviously not knowing that a recession was on the horizon. Additionally, we asked the board to invest a substantial amount of our reserves into the core products and services. And the board agreed. They believed that this was the right thing to do to update the products and services, and that we needed to be much more responsive as an organization. Well, lo and behold, these disparate decisions came home to roost in 2007 when the recession started. And we started to see, as most organizations did, a significant change in the market. And while the 2008 recession was economically driven, and this sort of disruption is humanitarian, driven challenges, the impact is eerily similar to us as an organization, and that is we are seeing organizations pull back significantly. And it's important to note that, as you'll see here, is that, while the recession started in '07 for us, I think most organizations, and specifically associations, tend to see an echo effect. As organizations and companies pull back on training, we often see that individuals step up and say, you know what, if my company isn't going to invest in me, I better take the necessary steps to prepare my career and my next job. If I'm seeing my, counterparts left and right of me, losing their jobs, what can I do to enable myself? So in a lot of ways, associations have been buffeted from recessions because where companies step back, individuals step up. And so we started to see that as well. For the first 9 months of the recession, we actually grew our membership because individuals were recognizing that there was an opportunity for them to enhance their career skills and their competencies and capabilities. So we really didn't see an impact from the recession until the last quarter. And that's when everything fell out of the sky. Our reserves were down to 8%. our revenue went down almost 25% from $23.5 million to almost $18 million. We lost 6,000 members in the last quarter of the recession. The reserves for our organization were down to 8%, and we had to make a decision relative to what do we do as an organization. We were in dire straits. The confluence of decisions that were really unrelated, all converging on cash, and it really did stretch the organization. And so we went to the board and we asked them to stay the course, that the strategic plan that we had developed and the decisions that we had made as an organization to address the market opportunity were appropriate, that we should not change our strategic priorities as an organization. More importantly, that we maintain our investments in our core products and services. And I'm very happy to say that since that decision was made and the board did agree, that we have seen significant sort of response in the market. After the recession, for the first 3 years after the recession, 2010 through 12, we saw the largest increase in the history of the organization in terms of new membership. And more importantly, we were prepared as an organization to respond to what the companies and the members needed in the market space. And so our focus was on, during the recession, and we'll get into some of the activities and tactics that we used, but more importantly, we were as concerned about post-recession as we were during the recession. And obviously, there are specific actions that you can take during, and then more importantly, what do you need to take now so that you can prepare your organization to respond more appropriately after the recession. So as an organization, as we sit here today, we've recast the company as ASCM. We are diversified in our top line revenue. We have 5 revenue streams, so we are not overly dependent on one particular product to maintain our organization. So our risk profile has been greatly reduced. More importantly, we've got now we work in 100 countries with over 300 partners across the globe. The organization has been recognized not only by governments, not only within the U.S., but outside in the international market to solve significant humanitarian as well as economic challenges. And you'll see here that we're currently partnering with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as well as with the Global Fund in the UN to work on last mile delivery of essential medicine, vaccine, and family planning products in Africa, currently working in 5 countries. It's important to note that we positioned the organization to be responsive to where the market is going. We did not try to predict where the market was going. We were trailing the market. So it's important to note that there are things that you can do today to prepare yourself, but you need to take specific sensing and activities so that you can sort of institutionalize a lot of the knowledge and a lot of the activities that you've learned. So again, I just want to focus on a couple of things. We did not have a full playbook on how to navigate the recession. What we learned and during the recession is that there are things that you can pay attention to. You need to adapt, adopt, implement, learn, and rapidly move forward. So in a lot of ways, this is very much like a turnaround activity. You don't have the luxury of time to see if something is going to work. You need to act fast, you need to be decisive, and you need to make sure that you're consistent in terms of your communication as an organization. So let's get into the lessons learned on some of the things. First, as indicated here, while you need to empathize with your members, I'm going to probably indicate that there's probably a higher level of commitment that you have as an organization, and that's first to your staff, that you need to make sure that they are prepared and appropriately communicated with about this, especially as we've gone into a remote working environment. We have a significant challenge for a lot of organizations that have not prepared nor enabled their staff to be able to work remotely. So there's a lot of challenges that need to be addressed relative to staff. But let's first focus on the external environment and in terms of what you can do. As indicated here, the focus needs to be outside in. You need to be able to understand and empathize with what your members and the companies that they're working for, what are they facing? What are their specific impacts? And how do you want to position your role and responsibility to those organizations? More importantly, how do you get feedback? How do you ensure that you're getting the appropriate communication so that you can make the necessary decisions, and that you're not knee-jerk in terms of responsiveness without really understanding how the marketplace is going to respond and how they're going to, number one, view your organization during this time. And let's be clear here, every individual, whether company or individual, is looking at every institution in terms of value right now. Either you're going to help me do what I need to accomplish, or you're not, and then they're going to move on. So this is particularly challenging when we've got a lot of plans in place and a lot of programs in place, whether they be conferences or other events that you can't deliver on anymore. So you need to take a look in terms of what your communication is to your members and ensure that you can support the activities that are being communicated with or marketed to. More importantly, members need to be able to count on you for relevant, timely, accurate information. And so your sequence of communication to your members need to be consistent, and more importantly, they need to be factual. And this is the tough part because we're in an environment of opinion fact, and it's often difficult to discern, are you giving me an opinion or are you giving me a fact? And I think you as an organization can be that clearinghouse to be providing relevant, accurate, and timely information to your members in terms of some of the activities that they're making or some of the decisions that they're making. Additionally, you want to be able to avoid making bad or imprudent decisions. For example, this is not the time to promote how to ask your boss for a raise. So you need to assess what is it that you're communicating with to your members. While a career fair may be a wonderful opportunity for individuals, this may not be the time to promote a career fair for individuals while others are losing their job. You may want to refocus your efforts in terms of how to increase your value to your employer, how to ensure, your job, and how to maintain your job. So your messaging is really key here, and more importantly, you need to be able to, stand behind the marketing and or products and services that you're communicating to your membership. I'll give you an example internally for our organization. We were about to promote a program that we can only deliver face-to-face. And right now, we can't deliver that. So all the products and services that we have right now, we're reevaluating in terms of how can we deliver it, can we consistently and accurately deliver content on a real-time basis. So it's really important that your messaging, it needs to be constant, you need to be relevant, and you need to be timely with it for your members. They are looking to you to be that voice of reason, that voice of record in terms of what can they do. And I can think of no better organizations than really the association community to be able to provide that resource and that common information that individuals are looking for. In terms of the, the tactical activities, this is from the finance perspective, first, cash is king. You need to be able to focus on those activities and services that not only preserve cash, but generate cash. So you don't want new product, new market type activities. This is not the time that you introduce a new product to the market space. So you need to go back on your core products and services, and more importantly, evaluate your revenue streams to ensure that you can continue to invest in those products and services that are going to provide a return today, and more importantly, that are going to continue to provide a return as you move beyond the recession. More importantly, this is now a time to prepare for the activities, but as well as for when the recession is over. You need to do dual planning because this recession will be done. Obviously, nobody is being able to predict the severity or the duration of this right now, but you need to prepare not only for the crisis as it hits today, but what are you going to do when it does start to turn around? So as I indicated before, you need to treat this like a turnaround. You need to be decisive. You need to be quick about the decisions. And more importantly, you need to be laser focused on those products and services that preserve cash and generate cash for your organization. And this really is this is a management function now, for the organization. Scenario planning. It's great to prepare scenarios. The one thing that we do know about forecasts is that they're all wrong. It's just a matter of how wrong are they. So when you're evaluating the possible scenarios on what would happen, as indicated here, you want to take a look at it from a number of different perspectives. What do we need to do today? What do we need to do over the next 3 months? What do we need to do over the next 6, 9, 12 months as an organization? And what is the potential impact that this could have on your organization if the revenues or the contraction persists for much longer than you anticipated? So contingency planning is not only for what will happen tomorrow, but what will happen from 6 months and 12 months from now if the recession and the economic slowdown does continue for an organization. In our contingency planning, when we presented the budget to the board last December, we had 2 contingencies for a recession. Now, obviously, we did not anticipate the coronavirus issue, but we anticipated that there was going to be a recession, as we have every year. Here is what's going to happen if we have a 10% reduction in revenue. Here's what's going to happen if we have a 20% reduction in revenue. I'd like to say that we were very conservative about our estimates. The latest scenario planning that we have right now is that we are estimating a 25% drop from our 2019 levels. So we are at $40 million. We are projecting that we will be at $32 million by the end of this year, and most likely that it will last for another 12 to 18 months before we start to see a significant turnaround. So when you see, the ABC plans here, you need to be very clear on what you're going to do. More importantly, you need to communicate that with your board and your staff so it does not look like you're making knee-jerk reactions to the challenges at hand. And more importantly, consistency of communication, that you're providing necessary communication to your board about what is going to happen. So you not only demonstrate your capacity to absorb the hits in the organization, but you're reflecting that there is a plan, that there is an opportunity for you to take corrective action to preserve the core of the organization and make sure that you're sustainable. In our current plan, we have 9 steps that we are taking, that we need to take as an organization. We are on step number 5 of 9. And number 9 is a reduction in force. We hope we don't get there. So the first 5 steps have already been implemented, and the board knows exactly what the next steps are going to be, as well as the staff know what the next steps are going to be. We share this across the organization. We want to make sure that the board, the finance committee, as well as the staff understand the contingency plans, and more importantly, what are the triggers that we are going to use to start to implement these contingency plans. More importantly, it starts to engender trust between you, the staff, the board, and the community at large, that you are prepared as an organization. And so again, it's not too late if you haven't developed them. It is now the time to start putting those plans in place, and more importantly, start to communicate out. So first, develop the plan and then stick to it. It is one of the challenges that you have is that, okay, here's the plan, and then when the crisis hits, you throw out the plan and everybody starts to, take very drastic or draconian actions that are not consistent with your contingency plans. You don't develop trust that way. So one of the things that you need to do is ensure that everybody is communicated with on a consistent, accurate basis about what your actions are today, what your actions are going to be tomorrow, and what are the triggers necessary for you to start activities that will be a little bit more, I would say, severe in terms of the actions that you're taking. As I indicated before, if cash is king, data is the queen. There is no substitute for having accurate information about what are the key indicators for your organization to take the necessary steps. So more importantly, what are you paying attention to? We've indicated a number of key indicators that organizations will take a look at. Obviously, you have to do it relative to your core products and services, but you need accurate real-time data so you can start to see how organizations or individuals are responding to either the marketing and or communication channels that you have. More importantly, what actions can you take? So as you're getting more information and key indicators in terms of how the market is moving, it could start to drive what actions you need to take. So do you need to enhance certain communications, or do you need to pull back on other communications? But it's really important that you have a monitoring system that provides you real-time information so that you can make informed decisions about the actions necessary for your organization. and more importantly, communication. And, you've heard this over and over again. You need to over-communicate with your staff. You need to over-communicate with your board to make sure that they understand that you are on top of this. This is the time for leadership. There is no greater time than in a crisis when leadership has to demonstrate their capacity to not only empathize with what individuals and your members are going through, but more importantly, to demonstrate that you have the core capabilities and the resources and the individuals, specifically teams, necessary to get you through to this. It will end, but more importantly, what you do during this time will have a significant impact on how organizations view your organizations moving out of this. As I indicated before, cash is king. So in terms of managing your cash flow, this is where your CFO needs to step up and take leadership on evaluating where the organization can preserve cash, and more importantly, how can it generate cash. So how much are you willing to invest of your reserves? How much are you willing to offer free in terms of the marketplace? What are you willing to delay in terms of payments to your vendors? And understand something, that also the members and their companies are making the same decisions about you. So they're evaluating your, bills and your payment structures and say, wait a second, can you help me during this time? Can you, reduce my membership dues? Can you make it easier for me to belong to your organization? You need to be very careful, because there are opportunities that you can take advantage of today where companies need your resources and your programming and are willing to pay for them. And at the same time, you're developing programs and services where you're giving away a lot of your value. You need to be careful to ensure that what you're giving away is not damaging where organizations and individuals are willing to pay 100% for. So this is a core evaluation, or this is an evaluation of your core products and services to identify what can be delivered into the marketplace today at its current state, what needs to be either reduced in terms of its scope or its price, and more importantly, what is going to happen as you make these decisions. These are not happening in a vacuum. So if you're offering, for example, 6 months free membership, how does that relate to an individual who's trying to, or is considering renewing his membership? He's looking at you and saying, wait a second here, I got to pay a full year, but a new member gets 6 months for free? So you need to evaluate your communication to make sure that you're consistent in terms of what your approach is to the market. And more importantly, you need to understand the pros and cons of either reinvesting your reserves, or more importantly, where can you access cash so that you can preserve as much as possible the core of the organization, to make sure that you're sustainable, and on the backside that you're able to thrive as an organization. We started the conversation here that it's the number one priority that you have is your staff, not only in terms of health and safety, but in terms of retaining your key resources for the organization. As indicated here, you need to make sure that you don't have any surprises for your staff or for organization. You need to ensure that the communication that you have with them is consistent and is not to be perceived from an alarmist perspective, but you also need to be accurate about what we share with them. You need to ensure that everybody is informed and is engaged, especially your remote employees. We're in a period right now where individuals and a lot of organizations had not planned for remote operations of the organizations for a week, let alone a month or 2 months as an organization. So you need to start enabling and sharing with your teams about how to work remotely and how to manage remotely for your the directors and your managers. This is going to be a difficult time for a lot of individuals, especially if they've got families who are cooped up with them or in a confined space, and they're trying to find time to do their work while managing a family situation. So this is not a one-size-fits-all, but more importantly, you need to ensure that there are no surprises for your board. You need to ensure there are no surprises for your staff. And this is probably a good sort of mantra to have as you're going through this. Try to be as upfront as possible and try to be as transparent as possible with your key stakeholders, and ensure that you have a communication plan and a sequence and a cadence of communication with your key stakeholders. More importantly, empathize with your members. Try to put yourself in their situation and understand what they're going through, and more importantly, what would you look for from an association to help them not only, get into the, a new business environment, but more importantly, how they can maintain and hopefully thrive at the backside of this. There is no secret formula to this other than being a upfront and a clear, concise communication channel for your members and for their co-organizations as well. Lastly, and there's no way to tell when this will be done, but it will be done. And our only hope is that the humanitarian crisis subsides fairly quickly, and then we can get back to the business and repairing a lot of the damage that had been done to our economy. We view this as an opportunity. As much as we view this as a shock to the system, we also view this as a significant opportunity for our organization. We truly believe that on the backside of this, that we will be much stronger as an organization because of the actions that we take today. We are not waiting for the turnaround. We're planning for the turnaround today while we're taking necessary steps to ensure that we're sustainable as an organization and that we can see a tomorrow. So the duality of this is challenging for a lot of individuals, and that we're talking about short-term tactics and activities to preserve the core of the organization, while at the same time telling you that you need to plan for the backside of the recession, because there will be a backside, and that you will need to position your organization to take advantage of the need that individuals and members are going to have in their in the turnaround. In our particular industry, I can think of no greater time than supply chain is today, that is on everybody's lips in terms of what the impact is going to be, whether in stockouts or whether in production or whether in short or long-term impacts. So while we think this is a great time for us, we're also forecasting a reduction of revenue of 25%. So we fully anticipate that by the end of this year, we'll be down to about $32 million as an organization. We've taken the necessary steps as an organization to preserve cash, and that we are now executing on the plan. But more importantly, we're learning, adapting, and adapting to the changes in the market space, because this current disruption is unlike any other disruption that we've seen. But there are lessons to be learned from these activities, and more importantly, what you do today and what you do tomorrow will have a significant impact on the sustainability and on your capacity as an organization to remain relevant. This will be done, and our hope is that it's done sooner than later, and that the association world and the economic as well as the humanitarian world will learn and will adapt and adopt to a very different economic environment than we're facing today. But you should take to heart that we will see our way through this. The working from home has challenged a lot of organizations. On a side note, I find myself taking calls from telemarketers and being willing to talk to them on the phone. So there are some unusual activities that individuals are going to be faced with over the next few days. So while this is a dire situation, understand that this is the time for associations to demonstrate their value and their worth as an organization. I can think of no better time than associations demonstrating their value than today. This is where organizations and individuals are looking to be a voice of reason, and more importantly, a voice for accurate and timely and relevant information. I want to thank everybody for taking time today, and I know that we'll have some time for questions if anybody has any. Thanks again.
Thanks so much, Abe, for sharing your experience and knowledge. We're getting some messages from people really appreciating the content and saying that was amazing content that you shared with us today, so we really appreciate it. We do have a few questions. As you were talking about remote work, I've been saying this week that I've had a remote office, and all of our consultants have been remote for 15 years, but the fact that there's other people now in the house with me during the normal school day is not my situation. So
yeah.
And they're older kids, so yeah, the disruption is pretty significant. So one of our participants asked, they said, we've heard from some of our members that we're receiving so many emails and communications that they are asking their association to pull back on the amount of communication. Everyone is being flooded from information from all outlets. How should we think about this? Is the root cause the content of the communication or not thinking enough about what members really need?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think you need to, again, put yourself in the member shoes and take a look at the communication that you are sending to them. So if you haven't already identified what your marketing communication sort of schedule is, you need to take a look at it today and start to pull back on those activities or those communications that really don't, that isn't relevant today. It may be relevant a month from now, 2 months from now, but focus on the information that your members need today. Also, consider that maybe having a website or a dedicated page on your web, on your landing page for individuals to go specifically for the issue on the coronavirus or the COVID-19, so that you can put all the communications in there, and then you just need to update it on that site as opposed to flooding the members with every piece of information that you can get out there. So I would say there is information overload, and that's why you need to really lean on your communication channel and your marketing teams to be concise, be relevant, and be timely. And so use a couple of, again, you need to use filters that are relevant for your members in terms of what do they want to hear, how often do they want to hear about it, and whom do they want to hear from this.
Great. So another question is, with all your lessons learned, which one do you think was the most important to help you rebound after the recession?
Staying the course. That would indicate that you had a qualified strategic plan. So again, you have to use, the what if scenario. Okay, so what if this happens? So you need to have the necessary plans in place. Now, what happens when you don't? And I think this is the challenge that you have. If you have a qualified strategic plan, it's easy to stick to it, albeit you have to make course corrections. The challenge is when the strategic plan that you had is so far gone right now that you need to take very drastic actions. And this is when you need to get your management team together and take a look at what is it that creates value for your organization today. And so the planning that is required for this on a short-term basis, you need to treat it like a turnaround. And for those of you that have not been in a turnaround environment, you need to evaluate the situation rapidly. You need to ensure that you make a decisive decision. You need to make sure that you can learn from the impact of the decision that you've made and course correct immediately. You do not have the luxury of time. And so you need to learn quick. You need to learn and, adopt and adapt and implement and modify on a consistent basis. This requires a high level of communication within a core group of individuals, but then you need to be able to disseminate those decisions out fairly quickly. So one of the challenges that you have is that as you're making course correction, that you don't communicate this out to your staff or to your board, and then on the backside, you're having to explain why you made the decision as opposed to bringing them into the process. That doesn't mean that you're sharing everything with them, but you're showing that there is a plan. You're showing them consistency in terms of your actions, and more importantly, that you have the control and the opportunity to respond to the challenges into the market, either internal or external to the organization.
Great, thanks. So Abe, we have a question from our friend Don D. He said, in the 25% reduction in revenue, does this include consideration for bridges for members in terms of dues or event helpers? Are you looking at direct help financially wise for members and their employees?
If I understand the question, it's, is this impacting the 25% reduction? Is it across the board, or are we seeing in particular areas? Is that?
Yeah, so does it include consideration for bridges for members in terms of dues or events?
Yeah, okay. In terms of some of the actions that we're taking, yeah, it does include the, accommodations that we're making for individuals as well as for organizations. So we are a hybrid in terms of our membership. We have corporate members as well as individual members. and we're making the necessary accommodations for the companies as well as for the individuals to demonstrate our commitment to them during this time. So one of the things that we often rail against is what happens during the next recession. Have organizations learned that you can't turn professional development on and off? And so we're seeing a lot of organizations pull back on their training or their memberships today, and we don't view them as a lost cause. We view them as a commitment that we need to ensure that we walk the talk. So we expect them to demonstrate value in positive economic conditions as well as negative. So here we are in a negative economic conditions. They've pulled back. We are finding ways to create value and resources for them, even though they're not members, and at marginally zero cost. So what we're doing is maintaining our contact with them, but we know we're going to take the financial hit. And more importantly, I'm trying to demonstrate to the organization, hey, look, we ask you to commit to your staff and your organization and your workforce, irrespective of market conditions. We're going to do the same thing. So we're trying to be consistent in terms of our communication, in terms of what we expect from them and what they can expect from us.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Abe.